And like I said, one of the things we wanted to do was to simply wait for later data to come about. And one of the things I wanted to talk to David about was trying to get hold of the latest wave of information. So we could do that analysis.
Tim, when you're talking about welfare participation, did you, I don't know if you looked, so you might not have seen this, but did you see whether people were staying on benefits for sort of big chunks of time, or whether they were doing what Bob was talking about in the earlier talk, where they're going on to a benefit, coming off for some reason, and then going back on? Did you notice any pattern like that?
Well, it's really hard for us to pick that up with the parents because we don't have any information about their experiences between the surveys. It's a lot easier for us to pick that up with the children because the data is much better. In fact, they're actually asked with each survey to go back and recount their history over the intervening period. So month by month, quarter by quarter, were you working? If so, how much? Were you on a benefit? What kind of benefit? When did you get on? When did you get off?
Just generally, what sort of pattern did you notice with those children or those teenagers who are on benefits?
Well, what we noticed, I think, with the original study, this is sort of going back a way because I haven't looked at the data now in almost 10 years. For those on the DPB, once they were on over this period.
What, forever?
Well, up to age 21. For us, that is ever, because that's the end of our sample period. But not surprising, if you go on at age 17 or 18 on DPB, not surprisingly, you're likely to still be on at age 21.
Stupid question. We've instigated, I know in Auckland and Wellington, particularly Wellington, teenage mothers' colleges, where I think one has about 70 young people, where they go to school every day, where there's a childcare centre for their child from the minute they want to arrive, and where they've developed and grown, and a lot of them are now going into tertiary education. The difference is scarily wonderful. But if we know that this is a solution, and it's a costly one, that is mostly carried by the community, why can't we do that with all the other? I mean, it's a stupid question, but you knew about this 7 to 10 years ago. Why didn't judges wise look and say, I've got an idea that will work? Why wasn't it picked up much earlier, or is this a stupid question?
Well, I'm not. We're really not looking at interventions in any way through this study. We're just simply looking at the experiences of parents versus the experience of their children and seeing whether or not there's basically any correlation between the two. So it's a very abstract, sort of high-level analysis. We're not looking at reforms in particular, and probably more importantly, we're not looking at any sort of interventions that might exist here, which is obviously something I would like to do with either the Christchurch data, Dunedin data, or any other data set that's out there, because in the end, it's interventions that are really important to look at.
So that correlates with what you're saying about low educational attainment.
So traditional school systems just don't seem to work for these children. Yeah, I think I've seen that before.
Because they've actually lost faith in the systems.
Yeah.
Many of them have lost faith in the system, and the Ministry of Education, in their wisdom, have given them a substandard form of education.
Which doesn't work for them.
Education for those people.
I don't think that the two schools I know in Wellington and Upper Hutt would classify themselves as substandard.
Well, no, they wouldn't classify themselves as substandard, and I certainly wouldn't, but the resources are far from satisfactory.
Oh, well, they're also
It's
supplied by the community.
yes.
They're not supplied by the Ministry of Education.
No, the funding comes from a pool of Ministry of Education. They get $11,200 per student to be on that program, and so it's inadequate funding. It is an alternative to mainstream education, and the programs the teachers are running are very, very good programs. They're trying their hardest, but it is not resourced adequately, and so it just fits in with that correlation.
Just one more comment.
Sorry, what was the difference in benefit receipt of the young people compared to the general population?
Well, I don't have any information in this study on the general population. All I have is what I have for the sample. I'm trying to remember if in the end we, because
With those 17 to 21-year-olds, so we don't know from the study how their benefit uptake compares to the rest of the population.
at that time, I'm really not sure what it would have been. So these are people between the ages 16 and 21,
Yes.
back in the mid-90s to the late 90s. And like I said, the proportion on average was about 10% over that period. So about 10% of the time during that age period, they were drawing a benefit of some kind. I don't know how that compares to the overall statistic for the general population.
Well,
I would
the
think.
general population was quite high at that time,
actually
so
was.
how do we, because that's when we had quite a spike in youth unemployment.
Right, because I mean,
So how do we know that that's a correlation between benefit received with parents and not another trend?
I mean that it might be affected by something else going on. Absolutely. I mean, the correlation could be quite different if you're looking at the children in a very different position of the economy and the business cycle, for example.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I think you sort of made my point, is that I think that we're very quick to describe this then as intergenerational benefit. I'm saying you are, I'm saying
Yeah.
people who pick up your study can be very quick to use that sort of terminology, which is quite loaded in my view.
Yeah.
Whereas there might be a number of other factors going on that seems to me is important to
Well,
point out.
I think the most important thing to keep in mind in looking at this, and I think Bob Gregory mentioned this yesterday, just sort of a quick side note and something he was talking about when he was asked to front up and fill in a gap that had developed in the first session. You have to be careful with these correlations. You shouldn't use them to talk about a causal link. It's not simply that if you increase the welfare participation, or take it this way, if you decrease the welfare participation of parents, all the problems will simply disappear.
If there was one thing that come out of this conference, it could be that you could really make that point emphatically to our minister, please.
I'll be happy to do that if I'm in that position to mention that. But it is just a correlation. It's not a causal link. There are lots of factors that lead to.
Maybe understanding the difference between correlation and causal link could be a really good thing to explain.
It is, and the problem here is it's tempting to look in a causal sense because, of course, it's across generations. It's not the children causing the welfare experiences of the parents. It's the other way around. It's just that there are lots of things that lead parents to be on the benefit. There are lots of things that lead children to be on the benefit. And whatever those things are, there seems to be some relationship between a positive relationship. And that's really all you can say about this.
Yes, there's one very brief comment. Yes, for people who are interested in effective intervention, education related, to break the link between the parent status and the children's, we'll be talking about that this afternoon.
Good,
Yes.
good. I think that's important.
Thank you very much.
Okay, can I just say one more thing? In terms of going back and updating, I think one of the things to do in not just getting later data for the welfare experience of the children, but it's actually to use a lot more information that we have about the parents' situations. As I said, we have these 14 snapshots about whether or not they were drawing a benefit during the time of these different interviews, but we know a lot more about their experiences as well. So we know, for example, whether there are gaps in that participation across the different snapshots. We know something about their work histories, where they're working, what they were doing, increases in education during this period. There's lots more information in this data set that's not being incorporated into this analysis, and certainly should be, to get a fuller picture of what this relationship looks like, and more importantly, what the sort of transmission mechanism might look like. Yes, I hope so. If David allows me.